Welcome back into the Daily Dose. I'm Jeff Hansen. The show's brought to you by Give'emHellBrigham.com and by CougarSportsInsider.com, part of the 24/7 Sports Network. Appreciate you guys tuning in. So many of you come back each and every day to spend some time with us here at the Daily Dose to talk a little bit of BYU football, basketball, all these other things. With football starting last week, we didn't even get a chance to talk about Marcus Adams committing to BYU, a top 50 recruit. He's committed. He signed with BYU, and now he's working on a waiver. Huge basketball news. This is a great place for BYU content, and I appreciate each of you coming back each and every day. What was not great was the way BYU's offense played on Saturday. We talked a lot about it in yesterday's video of what went wrong, and frankly, everything went wrong. You had wide receivers running wrong routes, missing blocks. You had offensive linemen who didn't know what they were doing, missing blocks, getting pushed back off the line of scrimmage. You had tight ends missing blocks, running wrong routes, and you had running backs who couldn't find the holes, identify where the gaps were, albeit the offensive line was getting beat up pretty good. But when they did play well and did create gaps, running backs were missing the holes. I mean, it was an all-around pretty terrible performance, and all of that culminated into a pretty awful game for Kedon Slovis. If you listen to Aaron Roderick talk about it, he talked about how Kedon didn't play well, but when there were so many things breaking down around him, it's hard to know what was his fault versus what was somebody else's fault. Was he hesitant because he went to go let it loose and let a throw fly, but his receiver wasn't there because his receiver ran the wrong route. So there were a lot of things that went wrong. Frankly, everything went wrong for the BYU offense. Now, we've seen things like this happen in the past. We've seen the BYU defense play really, really poorly. In fact, last year, we saw the defense play really, really poorly, and when Elisa Tuyaki was walking off the field, he got into it with the fan, trying to defend the defense. We haven't always seen coaches, when things go wrong, just say, hey, we screwed up. We played terrible. How are we going to respond? But Aaron Roderick joined Greg Wrubell on Coordinator's Corner yesterday, and it was really 30 minutes of Aaron Roderick owning it, being accountable, not really making any excuses, maybe trying to offer a few explanations on a couple of things, but really owning it and talking about everything that went wrong. And you could almost feel the challenge that he was issuing to his players, trying to figure out how they're going to respond. I want to read some quotes directly from Aaron Roderick in his interview with Greg Wrubell. First thing he said, first of all, no excuses. We just didn't perform the way we're supposed to. The thing that I've been the most concerned about in camp was getting into that first game. We have a lot of good players, new players that have been very good in practice, but putting it all together in a real game and performing as a unit was my concern, and we just didn't do that very well. We had substitution errors, some signal errors, some situations where guys may have been good players for us in the past that just went a little haywire at times. First game things, but we've got to play harder, and that starts with me. I have to do a better job. I'm very confident that we will. We've scored a lot of points in the last 3 years. We'll get things right. Substitution errors, running the wrong. I mean, those are new player type of mistakes. And maybe we should have seen some of that coming, given that 7 starters of BYU's offense were not on BYU's roster last year. Maybe we should have anticipated some things. I think we all expected a guy like Kedon Slovis to come in and play well. New at BYU, but not new to the BYU, or not new to college football, rather, not new to the speed of the game, but he didn't play well. Darius Lassiter didn't play well. Caleb Etienne really didn't play well. Caleb Etienne, I got questions watching him play. Is he going to be as physical as he needs to be at that right tackle spot? Kingsley, he wasn't new, but he was new to left tackle. He didn't play well. I mean, nobody played well. So is that first game jitters like Aaron Roderick talked about? Or is that just something that we're going to have to get used to? And this team maybe isn't the talented team that we thought they were. Aaron Roderick talked a little bit about it, more quotes from him. We have to be accountable and to be honest about it. We looked ragged at times. Our execution was not at the standard that we're used to here. We'll get back to the basics this week and we'll get things right. It's my job to get them back on track. I still have a lot of belief in this team. I have no doubts that we're going to be a great offense. I like that word, ragged, because that really is how BYU looked. They just looked like a team that was going through a walkthrough. It did not look like a team that really felt like they could lose that game. And that is, shame on the coaches for not getting their team riled up, motivated, inspired, whatever. And shame on the players for thinking that they could just show up and that they could win the game just because it was Sam Houston State. Aaron Roderick talked a little bit more about this, and let me get the exact quote really quick for you. He talked exactly about maybe the team just kind of showed up, thought that they were going to win, thought that because people have been telling them that they've been playing well, or maybe because the stats from last year's offense were good, that they could just show up and win the game. But Aaron Roderick talked about it. I'll let him speak for himself because he said it really, really well. The game can humble you quickly. Once in a while, you have one of these games. It's good. It brings you back down to earth. We've had a great camp, and I think our players went into that game with a lot of confidence the other day. And then we got punched in the mouth a little bit, and that's okay. That's part of the game. I'm interested to see how we handle adversity and how we bounce back. I have a lot of faith in our players. We have a good team, and we have a good system. It's been proven over time that this system works as long as we execute better. And I think our players are made of the right stuff that they will show up and play well next week. But you have to respect the game enough to know that every week there were a bunch of upsets last week. We're not happy with the way we played, but I'm glad we're not one of those but I'm glad we're not at one of those places where teams got upset by someone supposedly lesser than them. That's not how this works. SUU is a good team. They are going to be up here excited and playing with nothing to lose. I know those players. I coached at Southern Utah years ago, and I know those players relish the opportunity to play in a big game like this. And Aaron Roderick is exactly right. You have to respect the game. Shadur Sanders, the Colorado quarterback, was asked about the difference that he saw playing from the FCS level at Jackson State to the FBS level now at Colorado. And he said, there really aren't that many differences. It's very, very similar. He talked about how the defensive line, maybe at the FBS level, guys are able to get off their blocks really good, really quickly compared to the FCS level. But in terms of skill positions and what you're throwing into as a quarterback, he said it was really, really similar. And then he pointed out, he's like, you got to remember, not everybody that you're playing against at the FBS level is a first rounder. Like, yeah, there's those super talented guys, and you got to work your way around them. But there's talented players everywhere. And I think we saw some of that. I think that maybe BYU fell into this trap of thinking that Sam Houston State, they were an FCS team. They were going to walk into the game, show up, and Sam Houston State was just going to hand them a win on a silver platter. Fortunately, the defense did not do that. The defense played well enough to win that game, to pitch a shutout. They looked great. They still have a lot of things that they need to work on, but they looked really, really good. And the improvement from last year was huge. But the offense wasn't there. I'm expecting a turnaround game from this offense. I love that BYU got punched in the mouth. I would rather BYU get punched in the mouth in a really ugly season opening win against Sam Houston State than get punched in the mouth on the road at Arkansas right before conference play. You never like to be punched in the mouth. You never like to play the way that BYU played, but I would rather it happen now with an opportunity to regroup, regather yourselves, and get right before the real meat of the schedule comes in. Southern Utah, they gave Arizona State a run last week. They only lost by 3 games. It was 3 points. It was a weird game. There were lightning delays. There were all sorts of stuff. There was nobody in the stadium by the time the second half was played. It was a weird game. But Southern Utah's got some dudes on that team. They're coached really, really well, and they're going to be playing loose with nothing to lose. Furthermore, because of Blair Peterson, who was the offensive coordinator at SUU last year, who's since moved on to Northern Colorado, SUU's defense, they know exactly what BYU is going to run. Blair Peterson, he was at BYU. He learned his scheme at BYU. What he ran at SUU a year ago, it is Aaron Roderick's scheme. It's the same. It's exactly the same. Down to the play calls and the terminology that are used, there's similarities. This SUU defense is going to know what BYU wants to do on offense. They're going to know where the routes are, what wide receiver is going to break off what route. They're going to know when to jump. They're going to know what gaps a running back is trying to get through. SUU may not have the talent that BYU has, but they're going to know what is coming. That's just the nature of the game. They're going to know. They're going to be well prepared. It will be incumbent on BYU's offense to execute. If they execute better, then this game will go the way that FCS games should go, right? This will go the game. BYU will score 40-plus points and win going away. But if they don't execute, if they execute the way they did against Sam Houston State, SUU is going to punch them in the mouth. That they just are. You cannot play that poorly. You cannot show up and expect to win like that and expect to actually win. It's just not going to happen. You cannot show up like it's a walkthrough and think that the other team is going to gift wrap a win for you on a silver platter. That's just not how it works. You have to respect the game. I was encouraged by Aaron Roderick's comments. He seems to recognize what went wrong, and he seems to recognize and hold himself accountable for the problems. But his players have got to execute it. He's kind of left that challenge up to them. How are they going to handle a little bit of adversity? These guys have maybe been told they're great all year long, and now they're hearing, hey, maybe you're not that good. How are they going to respond? What are they going to do? I'm excited. I'm excited for Saturday. I don't know what's going to happen, but I'm really excited to see how this team regroups, regathers themselves, and puts things together on the field. Appreciate you guys coming back in for another episode of the Daily Dose. Until next time, give them hell.